So today's topic was going to be saturated fat, the debate, and is it good for us? Is it not?
Great. Okay. No, I would love to
Yeah.
ask questions about or have a debate. I don't necessarily, I probably agree with you, but I would love to learn more about that topic. That kind of stuff is interesting to me because I like meat.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, so it came out when the new dietary guidelines came out, right? That there was more emphasis on meat and saturated fat. And so people were, some people in the medical community were like, no, that's bad. And then other people were like, yes, we've been saying this for years. And so it's kind of fun. I did a podcast on it too. And it's kind of fun to just explore both sides and like, well, who is right? And why are we so confused?
Well, I mean, it seems to me like people's bias colors the side of the argument they take.
Yeah.
They argue for what side they want. They're meat eaters or Republicans, and they like one side, and they're, vegetarians or Democrats and like the other. And people don't know the science. My view, or from what I've gleaned, being like kind of skeptical of any argument that's made, especially when it's a politically based or whatever, is that a lot of the saturated fat, or I should say meat, got a bad rep. Fat, I'd say, got a bad rep, maybe pushed by the sugar industry, because sugar is the real enemy, I think.
I agree. Yeah.
That
a few years ago, we were being told to have 11 servings of grains a day, which is crazy.
Yeah, right. I mean,
so I tell people, like, remember the low fat craze. I think we're around the same age. So in the 90s, it was no fat Snapwells cookies. And I was in college during that time, and I was like, I will not eat any fat. And I ate plants, I ate my vegetables, I ate lots of fruit, but I also ate a lot of rice and pasta. And I was a college kid, so I couldn't afford meat, so I didn't eat it. But I love my Snapwells, and I had like fat-free Fig Newtons, and I got, like, in my mind, huge, but I got a little chubby, and I was working out a lot, but I was like, what is happening? And I was so stubborn. I just kept eating that way. And it wasn't until a few years later, I met my husband, and he ate meat, and I was like, oh, well, I should eat less pasta because I'm eating all this meat. And all of a sudden, all this weight flew off of me. I'm like, oh. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I've always been sort of sports focused. So I in college once I tried the keto diet or the caveman diet. I remember it was the Atkins diet. That was it. That was when it first came out, probably in the 90s. And it was actually really effective. It was kind of difficult to stay on completely, because to be,
especially when you're in college.
Yeah, it might have been the year after college or something, but it was pretty, it was 90s for sure. That seemed to me unnatural, but that also, to me, proved the point that protein and fat aren't all bad. Because you certainly can't do that with carbs, and then the more I've read about it more recently, that, there's a lot of brain health studies coming out that have come out, right? That you need fat for your brain. And for longevity reasons, it's good for maintaining mental acuity and all that plasticity, stuff. What's your research tell you about the brain health aspects of fat?
Yeah. So the cool thing is, we would say, okay, does eating fat raise your cholesterol? And then if it does, do we care? Right. But so when we see people that have a really low cholesterol that's falsely lowered with, let's say, a statin, that's not good for brain health. So because our brains need cholesterol, and so there's still a debate on whether eating fat itself raises our cholesterol. And I tell people, because the research, when we talk about why research, you can see one study that says one thing and one that says something else, and why is that? And there are a few reasons, but it depends who's doing the study and is there any bias there. But with nutritional studies in particular, they're very difficult. The accuracy is often flawed because you cannot measure, to measure a person's dietary intake, you're asking them to recall what they ate, whether it was what you eat last week or what you eat now. And you have to look at what they ate over a period of time. So it's almost always flawed in terms of, it's not that people lie, but it's just they underestimate, overestimate, forget things. Like, it's just a very difficult way to obtain data. So
even using those apps where you take a picture, because I've tried just about everything, especially now with this business. They're not accurate. I know. Sometimes I'll take it's a picture of the same meal with different lighting or whatever, and it gives me it's hard to get perspective too. How really big is that strawberry, and then how much oatmeal is there? It's hard for an app.
And I have gone through periods of time where I will like weigh everything, measure everything, because I'm writing a meal plan or I'm trying to macro balance it or something. But everyday life, people aren't going to do that, and you shouldn't. We need to. I tell people, don't, unless you're in a bodybuilding competition or something like that, don't take it down to that level. It's just maybe when you're first starting, how much is 3 ounces of chicken? Okay, weigh that so you can kind of eyeball that. But if 3 ounces is that different than 4 ounces really for your life, like it's not going to make that big of a difference. But anyway, so that's one problem with the research study. I actually did a course where like an obesity medicine certification course, and they started with 2 studies, and they said, okay, we had people inpatient for a week and we controlled every morsel of what they ate. We know exactly what they ate. And so this one study said, okay, plant-based eating is superior for weight loss. And then they went on to this next study. Oh, we found in this study ketogenic eating was better for weight loss. And I'm like, well, which is it? This is the same class, and you're saying these 2 things. So in those studies, yes, they're very controlled, but they have maybe 9 or 10 people because they're very expensive. They can't afford to do this huge study. And not that it's irrelevant, that data, but you can't generalize findings to a whole population with that small of a sample size. So it's interesting. I'm like, okay, well, what do I tell my patients? And sometimes it's a lot of trial and error. Like, okay, what works for you? And generally speaking, and I'll get back to your question too, I know I got off, but generally speaking, people that are struggling with weight are going to be more sensitive to carbs. So when they eat a high carbohydrate diet, they're more likely to get adipose tissue. Those people don't do as well plant-based because plant-based diets tend to be high carbs. It can be done. So some people like just have moral or environmental concerns, like they just don't want to eat animal products, and it can be done, but it's very difficult. So for most people, I'm like, don't go plant-based because you think it's healthier for you, for most people, because it's might not be.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's been my experience. I also tried we'll call it the Tom Brady diet, because like an anti-inflammation pitch about plant-based that I believed, and it worked for me. I did it 3 months before an Ironman triathlon because I had some inflammation.
Yeah.
And this was this was 5 or 6 years ago, before I ever, used peptides or knew more about inflammation. But the documentary I saw on Netflix about Tom Brady and his inflammation and longevity, and I ate the same stuff for 3 months. Didn't do any meat or milk. I went totally vegan, and it worked. I didn't, I felt like something was missing, sure, and I went back on meat right thereafter. But that also, gave me a little bit of information, at least about me, and that maybe tactically, going plant-based works. But from people that I've talked to too, they have trouble maintaining lean muscle mass. And then in any sports, unless you're probably wealthy and can engineer your diet so perfectly that it's kind of hard just to get the right proportions of your macros, right? Get off.
Especially with endurance performance, it's so much harder. And I've shared with people, I was running marathons, and you have to, when you're doing that kind of exercise, you have to eat carbs. You just have to. And my body doesn't really like that so much. And between that and maybe the excess cortisol from the running, but I got a little doughy, and like, you kidding me? Most marathon runners look like really skinny. And that was not me. But once in a while, you'll hear about us. You'll see us out there. So for women, especially, it's not fair, but sometimes we have to do things a little different
Oh.
because of our hormones, or because, maybe there are some cortisol issues, but there's a lot of stuff coming out now for women to maybe, I'm not saying if you're an endurance athlete, it's a completely different thing, but let's say you're just a recreational person wondering what's best for your health and your fitness and your weight. It's usually not going to be something endurance related. Have you ever listened to Stacey Sims?
No.
She is amazing, but she caters to women, women athletes, a lot of endurance women, and regular women too. But it's just a different way of looking at things. And I tell my clients too, like, I have husbands and wives, and they'll go on keto and he'll lose 20 pounds. And she's like, I lost one. I'm like, yeah, because he's a guy.
Yeah. That's
he's a guy.
my experience too. Maybe it's, that's more metabolism than diet, right?
Yeah.
I
I think men do better on keto traditionally. But when if someone's doing ketogenic, I say, let's do common sense keto. So I want people eating vegetables. Some people say, oh, okay, I'm on keto, I'm going to have bacon, butter, hot dogs. No, that's not healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
But to have some grass-fed steak with some broccoli, yes. So that's good. So yeah. So does eating fat make us fat? That's one of our questions. Not necessarily, but it could. I'm always like, well, it depends. Sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I think people go to the extremes for argument's sake, just to maybe get some clickbait or some headlines or sound bites. And I've always been turned off by that, or I notice it right away. But I think that's where most of it falls in my mind. It's like people are just saying things. Like, I'll give you another example that I like to use a lot, because the science is pretty clear that creatine is good for you. Like man, woman, old, young, brain health, physical health, that kind of stuff. And but there's still some people that think it's like a bro weightlifting thing only. Haven't heard about the mental benefits, or don't want to know about that, the sleep, recovery benefits, right? And just won't, and sort of perpetuate rumors about bad for your kidneys or things like that are so minor compared to having a teaspoon of sugar, or there's all kinds of other bad things we eat, right? Any just processed food, those kind of
so I think a lot of the debate, because some of this kind of then ties into seed oils, right? Because when we were told saturated fats were bad, it was replaced with polyunsaturated fats and all these oils that were artificially made that we thought were better for us. And then, so now there's an argument that no, those are causing a lot of inflammation. Inflammation, of course, makes us not feel good, but it makes us sick as well.
What's the science on seed oils? Because I've heard about that more.
Yeah, so that's lots of fun. There is a doctor named Catherine Shanahan who wrote several books about it. So I got a lot of my notes from there. But so basically, to get the oil from a small seed, and I'm not talking like avocado or oil, but like, let's say it's corn or sunflower, to get that oil out, they have to put it through this process. It's not natural. And sometimes they have to add solvents to it. It's just very, very difficult to get product from it. And because of that, because it's not natural, that can be inflammatory. But the other thing that makes it inflammatory is that, so if we'll have a 2-minute science lesson. So if you look at, let's say, a saturated fat, all the bonds are joined. There are no double bonds. They're all connected. And it's very stable. That's why it's solid at room temperature. It's good to cook with. It's not like nothing's going to happen to it. When you make an oil unsaturated, a lot of those bonds then become not stable. And so then when you heat it, it can become oxidized and cause inflammation that way. But I think a lot of, it was very interesting. I was listening to a podcast because most of the naturopaths now are like, seed oils are bad, you should not have them. Then I heard kind of a naturopath say, I don't think it's a big deal. I said, whoa, and I said, why not? And So a lot of the like processed foods, like ultra processed foods, things in packages, they have seed oils in them. So most people can agree those foods aren't going to be good for us. And so there are people that say it's not the seed oils per se, but it's how they're used in that processed food. But I like to, I say, okay, here's what I do. So when we get oil from an olive, when we get it from an avocado, those are big seeds, and they can express those and get good quality oil from there. It doesn't have to be processed, though it can be. If you get cheap stuff, it might not be the good stuff. So you want good quality oils, but those are going to be better. And I'm like, so if we don't know, of course, because that research is never going to agree, I'm like, why wouldn't I use avocado oil and olive oil? So I do. So if I'm cooking, I'll use mostly olive oil for like my salad dressings, and to roast vegetables, I'll coat with olive oil. But I'll use avocado oil in the frying pan because that's going to be able to tolerate that heat a little better.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, olive oil doesn't like to get too hot. You have to be careful.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So that's interesting. What about coconut oil?
Coconut oil is excellent for cooking. It's because it's a saturated fat, plant-based saturated fat. But yeah, it does really well with high heat. So I do use that. I like the flavor of coconuts, but I don't necessarily like coconut flavor on my vegetables. So
Yeah.
So if I'm making something like that, then I'll use the other oil. But it's excellent. A lot of people say to cook with your coconut oil and to incorporate it that way. But of course, it's all natural. It's very good for you, especially organic.
And they're kind of all about the same price-ish, right? I mean, seed oils might be cheaper, mass manufacturing a little bit, but
Oh yeah,
you got $5 for a big bottle of whatever oil. It's pretty good. It's going to last a long time. It's not.
Yeah. So I do buy the avocado oil. It is a little more expensive, but that's you have to decide where you want to spend your money. And for me, that's worth it to me. Coconut oil, though, man, that's not that's cheap. You can get that, and that will last.
Super cheap. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It also makes a very good skin moisturizer, which I do use it for that.
Yeah. Same here. Same here. I've noticed that that it's in a lot of skin moisturizers or stuff that I buy that is sort of, I don't know, inexpensive and natural. It seems to be coconut oil,
So we want to be careful too with what we put on our skin, because the skin is going to absorb stuff. So we talk about natural skin products, because you can put chemicals on your skin and it's absorbed, and the stuff is everywhere. So just a jar of coconut oil, man, it's a little messy, but it's so much healthier.
Cheap. Well, and so what's the difference between saturated and unsaturated fat again?
Oh yeah, the chemical structure.
Okay.
So a saturated fat is all bonded. It's stable, right? So it's solid at room temperature. It's when you heat it, it's not going to oxidize. So it's not going to promote inflammation in that way.
And the way to remember it might be it's saturated, it means full. So it's like, full. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And so then, I can actually give you the science.
And that's cool.
Since you asked.
Yeah. Oh, I love learning about the sciencey details.
Okay. So the chemical structure is completely saturated with hydrogen atoms. So I said it wrong earlier, there are no double bonds between these carbon atoms. So it's solid. Whereas when you have the vegetable oils or the seed oils, they do have those double bonds, which aren't as secure. So they can become undone and become oxidized.
Okay, the double bonds are ready to pick up other stuff like oxygen and be oxidized, and that causes problems with heat. So unsaturated fat mixed with heat causes bad stuff, because we all know, like, sometimes burning stuff is bad.
Right. Yeah.
It's actually chemically bad than burning other stuff, right? I think, okay. Is there any difference between what comes from meat and what doesn't come from meat?
Yeah, so that can be influenced by the things that the animal ate. What's the quality of the animal that the fat is coming from? And definitely people will agree that coconut oil a saturated fat from coconut oil is going to be less damaging than something from a steak.
Yeah.
Or,
But it's sort of the same looking chemical compound.
yeah, it looks the same. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. In my opinion, and it's such a, because I was raised, 80s to 90s, and they're still in there like, don't eat the fat, don't. And so my scientific mind is like, I think we can safely eat the fat, but sometimes it feels counterintuitive to say, yeah, go ahead and have that meat and that steak. And but so I do think that it all acts very much the same or very similarly.
Well, and like, to use edge cases, but what about, so eating bacon or eating, I love ribeyes, but I cut the fat off, even though it's pretty tasty. But should we be just taking a fork full of ribeye fat and eating it? Or no, that's
not necessarily. So now there's a difference between ribeye and bacon. So we all love bacon, it tastes good, but bacon is very processed. It's filled with nitrates. So and I tell people, I'm so sorry, bacon is not healthy. I'm sorry. So a little bit in moderation, okay, but don't think of it as a health food. First of all, you're bacon.
Yeah.
I like turkey bacon that is uncured. So it's cured with like celery salt, I think. Because even if you get like an Oscar Mayer turkey bacon, you can tell that's not healthy either. But that's how I get my bacon tasted. And once in a while, I'll have the real thing. Now back to the ribeye. We can probably have some of that ribeye fat depending on how much we're eating, but no, it doesn't make sense to just go eat those white globs of fat. It doesn't. So we look at calories that you can get from fat versus calories from something else. Like if you get a chicken breast with very little fat, it's kind of low calorie, whereas that ribeye is much more, but it's going to be more satiating when you eat it. It's going to keep you fuller longer. Whereas the chicken might not last as long, or you might be prone to eat something else. So again, I don't think we should go full abandon. And I find in everything in life, including health and science, if we overdo it to one extreme or the other, chances are that we're going to miss out on something. People that won't eat any fruit. Well, there are so many antioxidants in fruit and so much goodness that can come in there. It shouldn't be a never food, and fruit is good for you. But if we're working on weight and we don't want to get too much natural sugar, we might have to maybe have 1 or 2 servings a day, but not 5 servings of fruit or something like that.
Yeah. Well, and then the reason that fruit is better than fruit juice is the fiber.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Okay.
Definitely the fiber. Okay, to make a glass of orange juice, I think it's like 4 oranges. And I don't know anyone that can sit there and just eat 4 oranges. Like, you'd just be sick.
Right.
So yeah, for the most part, juice is on my no list. And nothing's never. But, let's say, and a lot of my older people, they're used to drinking juice every morning. I'm like, and I'll say, how strongly do you feel about that? Like, could you have an orange instead? Like, you could have a whole orange and be like satisfied with that juice. You don't even feel it.
No, exactly. It is like, I know it's bad. Sometimes I'll have it anyway. I'm kind of like that, but not often. I don't have juice in the fridge.
Right, not often. So once in a while is fine, and especially when you're active and working out in the heat, like having a little bit of juice isn't the worst thing in the world. So sometimes it's different advice to an active person that I would give to someone who's sedentary. And most of my clients are older and maybe they play pickleball, and that's great. I'm really happy if they do, but most of my clients aren't athletes. So you get into it's just different. You can't.
Yeah, yes, generalized, but still, those are good rules. I mean, I think everything you've said are things that I have heard and agree with and have been sort of living.